Oak Island Town Council public hearing and regular meeting, April 18, 2017, is now called to order. I'd like to begin the meeting by asking Mayor Pro Tem Scott to offer the invocation and pledge.
Our most gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we would like to stand before you for this brief moment and thank you for all of the blessings you have given us, for this island, for our citizens, and for all the people here. We would like to also ask you to bless our people in the service right now as we go through these tenuous and tumultuous times, and bless them and watch over them. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I trust everyone had a wonderful, happy Easter, and it's good to see everybody out tonight. We're going to vary a little bit from the agenda, and I ask you to please bear with me. We have Mr. Johnny Martin here, and he's going to do a short presentation that we're moving up from the presentation part of the agenda to beginning before we start our public hearings. Johnny, welcome to start your presentation. Johnny's going to give us an update on the FEMA Emergency Dune Protection Project.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank everybody for coming out tonight. We'll make this really quick. Just wanted to give everybody an update of where we are on the Post-Matthew FEMA Emergency Project. Just really wanted to remind everybody just real quickly too. So again, there was, just to remind everybody that really there's two ways you can get FEMA reimbursement for funds. One, if you do have an engineered beach, you can get what was lost during that event. However, the town is in the process of starting that, but does not have it yet. So what we were able to apply for was emergency work, which is if you have been less than 6 cubic yards per linear foot above the 5-year surge elevation, you can get reimbursement to get you back up to at least that 6 cubic yards per linear foot of beach. And so the Corps had estimated roughly 85,000 cubic yards. Our estimate based on surveys was around a little over 99,000 cubic yards, and FEMA was willing to take our numbers. So, what this means is, like in some areas where we lost some dune, again, we're looking at this 5-year surge level. So if you're sitting out in the water and you're looking at the beach, here you're, standing out in the water, up here is the dune. At elevation 4.5 NAVD, what we're doing is measuring this amount of sand that was left. If it was below 6 cubic yards per linear foot, we could apply to get material for reimbursement. If we had more than 6 cubic yards, then that area would not be eligible. So in this area, we actually did meet the FEMA requirement, and we're able to put like another yard or two to get us up to the 6 cubic yards. But in some areas, especially where if we had a little bit higher of a secondary dune, or if this area was a little bit flatter, I'll just kind of go back and forth. You see in this area, there's this primary dune, but then it dips off a pretty good bit in this area. So this one we were able to get FEMA reimbursement. At this one, even though the dune's taken out, you can see that it doesn't dip down, so we still had more than 6 cubic yards per linear foot, so that area was not eligible for FEMA reimbursement. So we've had a lot of questions about why is my neighbor getting it, but I'm not. It's mainly because of these reasons right here. And again, it's just sort of an arbitrary measurement from FEMA saying, above the 5-year surge elevation and this 6 cubic yards per linear foot. So that's what drove our decisions about where would get sand and where would not. So the base bid that what we did was we did 2 bids for the design of the project. The base bid was looking at just what would FEMA reimburse us for. So the profiles here in red are the ones that we did not have 6 cubic yards per linear foot, so we could get reimbursement. And the areas in green was even after the storm, areas that had more than the 6 cubic yards per linear foot. So FEMA would not reimburse in those areas. We did an alternate bid so when we did that original base bid, we ended up with, looking at building a dune this high, this wide in certain areas, and, some areas it was going up and down. So then what we did was said, okay, well, let's do an alternate bid to see if we could build a more consistent dune across all the area, and just see, depending on the bids we get back, at least the town would have the option on if we wanted to move forward with additional sand. So this was one where we pulled in a few more of the areas to build more of a consistent dune. The permits we got, they were received on March 8th. We had the original bid opening on March 13th. We only had one bid, so we had to re-advertise it for a week based on North Carolina law. We then had the second bid opening on March 20th. Again, we only got a single bid that time, but at least we could open it at that point. And after talking with FEMA, with what they would reimburse and things of this nature, what was awarded to the contractor was a base bid, which was roughly around $3.3 million for that base bid. So the town approved, and the notice to proceed was given on March 28th after discussions with FEMA, because their reimbursement was not quite up to that level. So we're still trying to iron some of that out, but we're getting closer with them, kind of upping what they said their original estimate was. But some of those negotiations are still ongoing. We had a pre-construction meeting on April 3rd, and construction began on April 10th, roughly a week ago. So it's been a pretty hurried process. So the project's going to be completed in 2 phases due to the environmental concerns. One of the permit conditions was that, of course, there's concern about turtles, and so at this point, we're supposed to stop April 30th and then we can pick back up and finish the project in November. So that's where we're at now. I know there's been a lot of questions, so I wanted to explain some of the reasons, kind of why the dune was put back where it was. And a lot of that was to streamline the permitting process, as well as some of the FEMA considerations. So one of the things that CAMA told us when we were doing this project in order to get the permit within the 30-day timeline that we needed is they said, well, we need to put the dune back where it was pre-storm. Secondly, we could not cover any existing vegetation. 2, the sand had to come from an existing upland borrow source that had already been from a permitted site, and there was some testing and visual observations that were required. And then lastly, they wanted, before we started construction, for us to have easements for the areas that we would be building. So that necessitated change in the order of construction. The last time I was here, we talked about how we were going to kind of start in the middle and work one way and then come and work back. Well, then when this easement required happened, we had to change that and start at the eastern end and work our way west. And the reason that is because the blue line that you see here, back in 2000, the public-private by town ordinance line was set as the Corps of Engineers mean high water line measured in 2000. This is the blue line. So you can see here at the extreme eastern end of the project, the dune construction is seaward of that point, so it's on public property, so no easements are required. I'm just throwing this in. So where it actually crosses is really right about where the pier is. So really, just sort of a good rule of thumb is that anywhere east of the pier, pretty much where we're building, would be on public property. Anything west would be on private property and would necessitate the easements that the town, I know, has been working on getting those, or the right of entries. I know the lawyer will correct me if I'm wrong. So anyway, I know this is a little difficult to see, but I just wanted to show you on the profile sort of the post-storm, and you see kind of where we're tying into the back of the dune. This new dune that we're talking about here is sort of dying out sort of at the tail end of the back of the dune here as well. So there again, I know there's a lot of people who've been wondering why it looks like, it's pretty far seaward. of maybe what you would expect. Another thing that's coming into play, and I'll show in a minute, is sort of, where the houses are, how close we can get back without affecting people's access and egress, as well as, again, the vegetation. So this is just a plot showing, or just a picture showing the it looks like we're way out here now, but again, we're going to be running into these structures pretty soon, and there again, it's not so easy for these contractors to kind of move it this way, move it that way. They want to be able to move along the beach pretty fast. So, that's one of the reasons the dune is where it is. Of course, they are making better progress. It took a little while to get things rolling. Now that they're past the first access, they're going to be able to add some more trucks and have some more throughput. Of course, it has been pretty warm, so there's a lot of public out there. We're spending a lot of time trying to make sure of people's safety, trying to keep them out of the work area as much as we can. I want to show this plot too, just to kind of show, it's kind of hard to see in the back, but this is a 2014 aerial photo. And you can see here that, where where the dune is placed is sort of back where the dune was back in 2014. This is the same aerial after post-storm, and you can see how far the vegetation line has moved back just because of the storm event right here at the beginning of the project. So again, I'll just kind of go back and forth a little bit, but there again, the dune is where it is really because of, again, putting it back where it was. Don't cover any of this existing vegetation, so we have to make sure that the backside of the dune dies out before we hit any of this. Little small patches we can cover, but any sort of, substantial line we have to make sure we stay away from, as well as making sure that we don't affect people's being able to go up and over the dune. What this plot is to show, where we're going right now. So this blue dot is kind of showing, we're expecting right now before the end of the month to get around 35th Place Street. And so what this is showing how many cubic yards per linear foot we showed on the plans being done. And this is what we've been placing. So what you see is that the beach has changed a lot even from the October survey that was used for the original design. We thought that we were going to be placing around 5, and we've been placing more like 7.5. So we've had to do some adjustments to the contractor on the alignment as well as the height of the dune to make sure that we are going to end up with the right amount of volume so that we don't overrun the budget of the project. So we're getting it more in line, and we will make up this difference in some of the areas down the beach. But there again, we knew this was going to be a concern just because we knew that the surveys from that were used for the design were taken in October, and we knew the beach had probably changed since then. But there again, we're getting that in line. So again, we expect the total project, this is around 35,000 yards here at this line. The total project we expect to be right at 100. So we're running on right now expecting to be done by the end of April to 35th Place, around 1/3 of the project. We're going to try to get a little bit of an extension if we can. Maybe we can get up to 40 to 50, so we could at least maybe get to half. So we're expecting to get anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 of the project done before we have to stop. This is just showing sort of cubic yards running cumulative along the beach. The blue dots are the design, the reds are where we are now. So there again, you can see, again, we're roughly for, 15,000 yards that we are right now, we're roughly 1,500 yards over. So we're roughly 10% fat, if you will, on the volume. So again, we'll just make that up as we go along. But anyway, just kind of wanted to show you that just to let you know the things we're trying to do to make sure that we don't overrun the project budget and we, put the amount of material that's out there that needs to be placed. And this is just an aerial graphic showing the green is, what has been completed. This is partial sand placement, and this was as of the end of the day Thursday. So this doesn't have today's work or yesterday's work included, because there again, there's always like a day or two lag for us getting the surveys. But anyway, they're really starting to move along now, and again, we expect by the end of the month to be around 37th Street. So the next steps are to continue the existing work till the end of April, and again, depending on the production rate and how far we get, we may ask for an extension into May. I know that it's been told that for the homeowners to remove fencing and vegetation from the front side of push dunes where those have been done. We've been working with FEMA to adjust the project funding to match as close as we can to the received bid. And there again, safety and education of the public is a concern given the tourist season. You know, I think that that's getting better. Last week was just a real warm week. There was a lot of people out on the beach, so it took a little while to get everybody, but I think we're getting better on that as well. So with that, that's sort of my update of where we are with the project. Any questions?
Any questions from council? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll move into the public hearing section with public hearing number 1, but before we start the public comments to that, I'm going to defer to our attorney, town council, regarding the quasi-judicial nature of these hearings. I think.
Procedurally?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone who wishes to provide evidence needs to be sworn in.
Okay, and Jake, I think you were going to come up and speak a little bit before we went into public comments. So I'll turn it over to you if you want
Yeah, anybody?
Would it be okay with council if we moved public hearing number 3 next? Because it's also the same thing Brian's going to discuss now.
Fine with me.
And then put public hearing number 2 at where number 3 is at now.
Typically, before we get started, at least in the past, we've gone through a little diatribe about conflict of interest.
You want me to do it?
I can do it, or you can do it.
Go ahead.
Okay. If any of the governing board been out to the site and saw something that you think would make you impartial today, raise your hand. No? Okay. Have any of you had ex parte communication with the applicant or adjoining property owners and heard things that you think would make you impartial today? And finally,
Same question for staff. Has anyone talked to staff about this that would outside of the context of this hearing, has anyone talked to staff about this particular hearing and feels that that conversation would lead you to not be able to be impartial today?
okay, and a final catch-all, is there anything,
Jake, could you speak into the microphone, please?
is there anything you've received or seen from anyone since you've received this proposal that you think would make you impartial today? That's the last one. Okay, all right. Would you like me to give a brief staff report?
What is, you've got the floor.
Okay, all right. So this is a conditional use permit for a planned unit development. Let me grab my notes, 1 second. The applicant is Equity Investment Associates, LLC. They're applying for a conditional use permit for a phased development plan, the purpose of which is to obtain their vested rights to build on the site. On my staff report, the first paragraph, I realize is a bit convoluted. All it really essentially says is if for some reason down the road there's some large hazard, like a big sinkhole or something, that would be detrimental to the public health and safety, we can put a stop to the development going on. That's not really a scenario I foresee. I was just being thorough. A phase plan has much less detail than a specific plan, like a preliminary plat, for example, that you would see. So this will not be the last you see of the Pine Forest developers. They're going to be back again when they're ready to build on each phase to show the specifics of how they plan on subdividing and all that. In fact, you'll see them next month for that very thing. PUDs or plan unit developments are similar to a zoning district where design standards and infrastructure requirements can be proposed by the developer. A benefit is that the landowner and developers and the public know what is required for that particular plan unit development. We do have several in our jurisdiction, mostly on the mainland side. If you guys might remember the DRAPAC group, for those of you that were here about a year or so, a bit more ago, proposed something very similar in an area close by on the other side of 211. It's the same thing as that, the phase development plan. The planning board did review this and recommended approval of this conditional use permit. All the required public notifications have been done. I suggest at the end when you make your motion that you include, or as a separate motion, to also adopt the associated findings of facts document that I've prepared. And it's just a procedural thing that state law sets out that we need to do. And the applicant is here with a brief PowerPoint presentation and can answer any questions that you guys have. Do you guys have any of me before we send it over to them? Okay.
Madam Mayor, the applicant's entitled to cross-examine Mr. Vares as well, if you'd like. I'm good. Thank you.
Mayor, members of council, thank you for having the opportunity to speak before you tonight. My name is Dan Weeks. I'm here on behalf of Equity Investment Associates. It's great to be at this point in time in the project. There's been a lot of work that's been done on our side of the table to sort of implement this initial phase of the project. And so just to give you some context with regard to the site, it's 564 acres, which is outlined in red. We have an access point on Midway Road, and we also have an access point on Highway 211. Another element of this project is its overall size is 2,200 acres. And so this is just the initial sort of pass. I think our intent all along is to implement the entire tract into a PUD. And I think that what we've heard from staff is that with the ordinance that's coming, the UDO and so forth, that we would sort of integrate all this sort of this summer and begin that process as well. But this is just the initial sort of phase of the project. The second slide, as a landscape architect and planner, is very important to me. Your future land use plan allocates this site as sort of a mixed use component. It contains office, it contains mixed use, residential. There are some medical facilities associated in this. And also the residential piece of this has a variety of sort of price point and product type. So we feel like at this point, the plan that's in front of you and proposed is in concert with the future land use plan. Just some facts as we arrived at sort of this phase development plan. We are proposing on a residential sort of population of 2,850 units. That's 5 units per acre. We arrived at that based upon the table of permitted uses, and this project is zoned CLD. So when you back into this number, it's primarily, you're allowed 7,500 square feet per single family use. So if you divide that, 43,560 divided by 7,500 gives me an allocation of 5.8 units per acre, but we have proposed 2,850. Will we reach that? I don't know if we will or not, but I think that at least it gives us some flexibility with regard to sort of the overall project. We do have some general retail and commercial mixed use of 150,000 square feet. The medical, healthcare campus is about 100,000 square feet. Currently right now, Nuvant is building on that site right now. That building is about 10 to, I think, 11,000 square feet. It is underway. And so we feel like at this point in time, there is development activity going on. We would like to create momentum in the project. We, as Jake has stated, is that The Meridian piece of this, the assisted living and independent living, has been submitted, and it is in the pipeline. So we are moving forward with that component as well. What's important to us is that the wetlands and open space are such that they're used as transition and green belts within development parcels. And right now, at this point in time, we're allocating approximately 90 acres, or 16% of the site is open space. We firmly believe that that number will increase based upon internal pocket parks and linear parks within residential and/or commercial sort of developments. This is sort of the PUDC plan, and as you can kind of see, it's sort of a kit of parts. And this provides the framework for the project. We wanted to identify sort of the roadway network throughout the project, providing sort of looped roads and minimal avoidance to the wetland areas, and utilizing existing wetland crossings. We do see a destination in the center of the project, which is sort of a park component and a park node. And we feel like is that we didn't want to have a tremendous amount of development on the main arterial roads of the project, so that they could be, in essence, treated as pedestrian thoroughfares and green belts that links the project, the residential communities, to the commercial, the mixed use, and so forth. We really have been an advocate for utilizing a trail system, multi-use trail system, sidewalks, integration, and I think also within a 5 to 10 to 15-minute walk within the community. And so at this point in time, at least this is sort of the basic foundation of the plan. We wanted to give you sort of this illustration because we feel like this is important. This is getting into the weeds a little bit, and this is what we have been doing on our end from the planning and engineering side of it. Just to get your bearings, as you can kind of see, the main entry point is on Highway 211. So as you're coming up into the project from a visual standpoint, on the right-hand side, you're going to see the Novant building, which is the medical campus, on the right-hand side. That building will be the first thing that you see, but what we see is the ability to go ahead and create a campus, a healthcare campus. That's about 11 acres with sort of de-emphasizing the parking. And we put that parking on the exterior of the project and created a campus-type setting on the interior side of it, so it's pedestrian-friendly. As you look to the left of that sort of parcel, you see the mixed use. That we really envision as being sort of multi-story buildings, retail, commercial, restaurants, pedestrian scale, with potential office on the second floor and/or flats. We would like to see people living in those buildings and that space to sort of bring it to life. As we move up the roadway past the healthcare campus, this is the Meridian site, which is the assisted living and independent living. It's about 14 acres with a possible expansion behind it. And so right now we have designed this facility and submitted it to the town for sort of approval. And so this is actively happening. So the next phase of this, beyond the medical campus in Novant, would be the construction and start of sort of the Meridian campus. On the other side of the Meridian campus, you'll see a residential neighborhood. It's approximately, I think, about 105 lots. And those lots are such that, you know, they're sort of a variety of size. There are some rear load conditions. There are some sort of front load conditions. But we're also providing opportunities for pocket parks and sort of common areas. And so the green areas are the wetlands, and we preserve the wetlands. We do not want to sort of turn our backs on the wetlands, and we want to engage people with trails and systems to get into those areas. But we see that as sort of a fabric throughout the project. So that, I'm trying to be brief. I would love to be able to answer some questions, but again, we thank you for the opportunity to be here. We want to be a good neighbor. We want to work with the town in every aspect of this project. It's going to be you're going to get tired of seeing me probably, but we're excited about it. And I think it fits into sort of your vision with regard to the town in moving forward.
We're excited as well. Thank you for the presentation.
Any questions?
Questions from anyone? Thank you.
Mayor, I don't have anyone signed up for this public hearing, but I have 2 ladies signed up on public hearings, but did not indicate a number. So I just wanted to check and make sure. You're not going to speak? Okay.
Public hearing number 1. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on a request for a conditional use permit to grant vested rights for a phased development plan for a planned unit development known as Pine Forest. And you said no one has signed up to speak?
Motion to close public hearing.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. We are able to take action on this at this time. Does anyone have anything for discussion or entertain a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the Pine Forest Plan Unit Permit Phase Development Conditional Use Permit application and the associated finding of facts document.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Just so the minutes are clear, the council will be adopting those findings of facts as presented by staff.
Do we need to put that in the motion, or?
I think, was that understood? If that's understood, we're fine. We don't have to go state it again.
Okay. All right, we're going to skip down to number 3 and make it number 2. Public hearing number 2. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on a request for a conditional use permit to allow a dwelling in a principal business and an established business. Brian, is there anything we need to do here?
Well, it's the
legally?
same thing. It's a quasi-judicial, so we're trying to ensure due process safeguards. So has anyone talked to the applicant about this prior to today's hearing? Has anyone talked to staff about this prior to today's hearing and that conversation would make them impartial? Anyone done a site visit outside of this hearing? Can you think of any reason?
Other than driving by it every day.
Right. I mean, you're not necessarily not allowed to do a site visit, but if you go out there and saw something that's not evidence in here, you can't consider it. That's the whole point of these questions. Is there any other reason why any of you think you could not be impartial during this hearing? Okay, anyone who wishes to present evidence, including staff, has to be sworn in.
Jay, yes.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you give to the council during this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Okay. The applicant is applying for a conditional use permit in order to have a dwelling and a principal business at 8517 East Oak Island Drive. The table of uses, section 18-116 of our ordinance, codifies a dwelling and a principal business as permissible in the CB Community Business Zoning District, which you're located in, if you obtain a conditional use. So that's why they're here before you today. There are specific standards listed in my staff report that are also outlined in our zoning ordinance. They're pretty straightforward and minimal. One is that a parking space is provided for the bedroom, and that it must comply with state building code, which they would have to do anyway. There are 4 general standards to consider when approving a conditional use permit. Those are also listed in the staff report as well. This conditional use permit is not terribly complicated. It's fairly straightforward. All the required public notifications have been done. And as before, when you make the motion to approve or deny, that we include the findings of facts, the adoption of those in the motion as well. That's essentially it. Let me take that back. There was one condition the planning board recommended, which was to require that the area that they're applying for, where the residential dwelling area would be, that it would have to be habitated by the manager or staff or the leasee or leaser or the owner, something like that. And so that's a recommended condition. When I heard it, it threw up some flags for me, but I couldn't think of any specific case law off the top of my head at that moment that applied to it. But I did do some digging, and I found there was a Hill versus City of Wilmington case. It was fairly recently where they allowed accessory dwellings like garage apartments and that kind of thing in single-family residential zoning districts throughout Wilmington. But the ordinance said that it had to be occupied by the owner, and that was appealed to the courts. And the courts said the government cannot regulate whom lives in a home. It was beyond their scope. So the court invalidated that owner occupancy requirement standard that Wilmington had. So I wanted to throw that out there before, I wish I would have caught it beforehand, but I didn't, but now you guys know. The applicant is here if you guys happen to have any questions of them, you know.
Does anybody have anything to
Or
ask,
me.
or would you like to speak?
Well, the purpose in that was to be assured that the owner occupied, that they didn't rent it out to someone else. That was the purpose in that provision from the planning board, but I don't, from what I can gather, we can't do that.
I don't think that's, Brian, would you clarify that?
I mean, I don't want to give the applicant legal advice, and the applicant's out here, I understand.
But the Wilmington one was residential, correct?
Advising us.
Right, well, I know, but they're
It
going to hear
wasn't
what I say.
business.
If Jake's not comfortable with that condition, I think we should defer to staff's opinion. But I am not saying that it's illegal to do that.
Okay.
I'm saying every case stands on its own back.
Taken. Point well taken.
And that was also in a residential, not a commercial area, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, there's little nuances in every fact pattern that one court may look at this different than the Wilmington case, is what I'm saying. But obviously, the safer play would be to defer to the Wilmington case as being the authority on this type of condition.
Jake, if you will, again, the Wilmington case, go over that one more time for me. The owner has to live there or doesn't?
That's what the standards in the Wilmington ordinance specified. If you have an accessory dwelling unit like an apartment garage, it has to be occupied by the owner. It was appealed, Hill versus City of Wilmington, and the courts agreed with the person appealing. And said you can't, that's beyond the role of government's authority.
You could always ask the applicant if they agree with that condition being placed.
Still getting a gray zone even if they agreed with it, I'm thinking.
It was agreed upon during that meeting.
Okay. All right.
Well, I'd like to hear the applicant under oath say that.
Well, why don't we ask him?
You're
Go ahead,
entitled to
Tim.
do it. You're both sworn in, is that correct, sir?
We are, yes, thank you very much.
But if they'll
My name is
state
Justin Stifler. I am the owner of the business in the dwelling, which is Arc Wellness. This is Mark Gullidge, he is the owner of the building itself. Basically, what we're proposing is to have how's that worded? Basically, we're proposing to have an apartment that's part of the business building where one person will occupy that. That person would be me. It's a one-bedroom, 1.5 bath apartment. There's ample parking for it. Yeah, we appreciate you guys looking at this for us very much. And if you have any questions, we're happy to answer those. But I think it's pretty simple.
The utilities are together in this building. I don't even know how you would rent it out to somebody else because, I mean, I guess if I paid all the utilities or something, but you'd have a business in there. It doesn't even make sense to me to try to, the apartment is literally, it's just like going through that door and there's, it's connected. It's not, separated at all other than there's a door between the live and the workspace. But, and it didn't even need to be a fire door or anything. I mean, it's literally just like walking into a bedroom. The fire marshal said there did not need to be any separation between the two. I don't know why. But anyway, so it doesn't matter to us. We have no intentions to rent it to anybody other than the tenant there or, you know, an owner or employee, somebody that's there at the site anyway. We're not gonna, I would never want to rent to an outside person anyway.
Who actually owns the property? Do you own?
I own the
jointly?
building.
Okay, and could you state your name one more time for the record?
Mark Gullidge.
And you're the applicant, that you join?
Well, he's the tenant, and he's the one that's wanting to live there, and.
Okay.
And,
We're joint applicants. though,
yeah,
right?
well, we joined, yeah, we both applied.
Mr. Gullidge, do you have any problem with the town, if the council were to pass this conditional use permit, to add a condition that you wouldn't lease it out to someone who doesn't work there?
Yeah, as long as we word that in a way that, yeah, as long as it's anybody that's,
Jake, will you read the
live or
condition?
works with the,
Can I bring Jake back up here?
Sure.
Jake, will you read the condition to the applicant that the planning board recommended?
That's, here it is. Planning board made a motion to recommend approval of the conditional use permit with the condition that the dwelling unit be designated for the owner, leaser, leasee, or employee.
Do you have any problem with that condition?
no, sounds, I mean,
So you would agree with that condition?
an
That's all.
owner or employee or,
Or,
yeah, sure.
right.
Don't think the business owner would want to have an unrelated person. It would be rentable to me
Makes sense to me,
anyway. I
but
know.
since we're here, they're considering it, if you consent to that condition, it may go, well, I don't know how it's gonna go, but if you consent to that condition, I think the council needs to know that.
Condition.
And you do consent to it? Okay, thank you, sir. Madam Mayor, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just for the record, there's a correction needs to be made to the finding of facts, item number 2. The book,
Not
it
needs to be
says
taken
does
out.
not meet, it should be does meet,
Right, the word "not" needs to be taken
yes.
out.
But that needs to be corrected.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Anybody have questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else sign up for this public hearing?
No.
Motion to close the public hearing?
No one signed?
Motion to
the
close
meeting,
the public hearing.
please. Second? Charlie, all in favor? All right, thank you very much. Public hearing number 3.
But we need to take,
Action.
Oh, sorry. Action may be taken on this. So I entertain a motion or discussion on this.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the associated findings of facts document as presented in our packet.
does that include the condition that the planning
It
board?
includes the conditional use permit. It doesn't say that, but it should include the conditional use permit, yes.
Second?
Well, would the approval of the conditional use permit contain the condition recommended by the planning board? I want to make sure I'm clear on,
Okay. That's
is that right, Mr. Medlin?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
Second that motion, okay.
All in favor? Thank you. Now we're moving to the next public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on proposed amendment to the Land Development Codes, Section 14-30, decks, walkways, and stairs, construction standards and development, to allow for shared elevated beach access walkways between continuous properties along a shared property line. Do we have anyone?
Yes, Liz Young. Thank you.
Yeah, please, when you step to the podium, please give us your name and your address, and we do have a 3-minute limit.
My name is Liz Bianchini. My address is 532 Pinehurst Circle in Hampstead, 28443. I don't really have anything to add other than we would really like to see all of you approve the decks that would be shared. It would be one deck and one walkway between 2 homes for 4 lots. So it would essentially be 2 walkways from 2 homes, and they would share the one.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Lisa, do we have anyone else? Okay. With no other speakers, I'd like to entertain a motion to close public hearing number 3.
So moved.
All in excuse me, second? All in favor? Thank you. All right, we may take action on this as well. So I'll entertain a motion or discussion.
I'd like to ask Jake, if I could, so, just so I understand, everyone else understands. The way it is currently, our ordinance allows for each oceanfront home to have their own walkway, right?
If they receive a CAMA permit, yes.
Yes. So this would lessen the impact, the environmental impact, by having one walkway for two houses. Okay, I just want everybody to understand that. Make
That
sure
is
I-
correct. It's, yes, yes.
And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you earlier. CAMA does approve those.
Yeah, you have to get any hardened structure, particularly beyond the development line, requires CAMA permits.
Any more questions for Jake?
Jake, if that becomes the norm, so when you build two more houses, let's say you build 2 new houses, do you have to go back through CAMA again, or is that something that's already been established?
If it's a house without a walkway, then when you go to build that walkway, yes, you would need a CAMA permit. And there is a caveat in here in the text that was brought up at the planning board meeting where it limits it to 1 walkway per property. So hypothetically, someone would not be able to have a shared walkway with their neighbor and then at the same time build their own, so they could hypothetically have 2 for 1 single parcel. It precludes that from happening.
Also, if they choose not to have a shared walkway, they can still have 1 each, correct?
Yes, as it currently goes now.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the text amendment as it's presented in our packet.
Second, please. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. We've already did the presentation, so we're going to skip down to the adjustment and approval of the agenda. Does any council member have an adjustment to make to the agenda? I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. All right, it's time for our public comment section. Lisa, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, Roseanne Fortner.
Hey, Ms. Fortner, you know the routine. Okay. Thank you.
You don't trust our timing?
You do well.
Synchronized, yes, synchronized. Roseanne Fortner, 113 Paula Circle. I hope you can see my shirt. It says unless, and who in the room knows what these trees are?
We can't see you.
You can't.
You have to come out. You're too short.
I am too. Where does it go?
I can't see it.
Unless.
Unless. Is that the name of the tree? You know unless tree? No. Okay. Let's go on then with our 3 minutes that are rapidly winding down here. Saturday, April 22nd is Earth Day all around the world. What began in 1970 in an environmental teach-in led by Senator Gaylord Nelson has become a time to rally around the quality of the Earth's environment and reflect on our role in protecting that quality. Millions of people around the world will be marching for science and the environment on Saturday, some of them wearing this shirt. On Oak Island, we will have exhibits and activities on Friday for school groups and families. And on Saturday, among other events, the Beach Preservation Society will have its fundraiser for protection of the beach environment. You may have heard about that fundraiser. Enough people did that all of our tickets are now sold out. If you have a ticket that you can't use for some reason now, some other people are looking for them, and you can let us know at our email address, beachoki@outlook.com, and we'll connect you with potential buyers. Remember that members get first opportunity to buy those coveted tickets when they come around next winter. But you know, we really want you to think about beach preservation even when we aren't having a party. Your membership and your active assistance and participation in programs is important all year long. We are nothing without you. My favorite author, Dr. Seuss, gave us our Earth Day message. I can't go to the March for Science on Saturday, so I brought the message to you. These are truffula trees from the book called The Lorax, Dr. Seuss's favorite book, his environmental story. At the end of the book, the Lorax lifted himself from a pile of rocks outside the Onceler's factory, where the environment was totally devastated by a person who used it once. The stump that he was on said, unless. Unless. As the Onceler tossed the last truffula seed, these are truffula trees, to a young boy, the next generation, he delivered an Earth Day message that the boy was in charge of the trees and, by analogy, the earth. Unless, he said, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to happen. It's not. So remember, whether you're coming to our Earth Day party to drink earth-friendly wines or you're not coming, unless you care, nothing is going to happen. You have a role in caring for the beach. It's all about the beach. Join the Beach Preservation Society and help us take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's exciting news.
Betty Hupp?
I did not know I was going to follow that, but what I have to say pertains exactly to that. I'm Betty Hupp, and I live at 7916 East Yacht Drive. I'm going to tell you all one more time. The chaos and destruction on East Yacht Drive at 62nd and 61st Streets by David Purser's mutilation of wetlands is unconscionable. The three of you all who voted for that, to allow his desecration of this lovely island, there's not one thing any of you can do if you live to be 100 that will atone for what you did to all of us on this island. And now you're asking us to pay for beach renourishment, yet you do nothing to preserve our wetlands and our dunes. Breaking a dune to install a swimming pool that you say has a pervious surface, of course the bottom better be impervious, destroys the roots of the sea oats that held the dunes. Matthew destroyed those dunes that had been broken, and it destroyed them quickly. And now I've learned that 5,000 square foot houses may still be built. You get a conditional use permit. Please. 3,999 square feet was what you all voted on. Please don't allow anyone to build a 5,000 square foot house on these small lots. Make sure that our ordinance stands and is not used. And thank you.
Thank you.
Barry Golub?
Good evening. Barry Golub, 6615 West Beach Drive. I was just wondering where we are. I see on there is no agenda item for discussions on beach renourishment at all, or taxing or anything like that, and your budget is due, I believe, in June, which only leaves one meeting to discuss. Is there going to be any discussions about how we're going to pay for a proposed beach renourishment at any time prior to June, where the budget's coming in?
You need to check the website on the upcoming budget meetings.
What about the one tomorrow? Is tomorrow part of a discussion that will include beach renourishment?
Correct.
It will include that?
Well, I can't tell you, I'm not sure what it will include, what comes up, it's a workshop.
So does the workshop mean that it's interactive between the people?
I would just advise you to check the website and keep up with those budget meetings, and feel free to attend.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Ann Brewer?
Marion Brewer, 3524 East Pelican Drive, and when you changed the date, my brain didn't catch it when it came time tonight. I understand that we have no choice but to rebuild that pier. So I'm not going to argue on that. But there's two things I do want to make clear. As a taxpayer in this town, I do not expect to be asked to pay to walk on that pier. That's line number one. The second thing is, whatever the contract is with whoever is running the, for want of a better term, the bait shop, that contract, when it expires, needs to be put out to public bid. And it needs to be very clear what the responsibilities of both parties are. And there needs to be a way for both parties to escape from it. As you can probably tell, I was not in favor of us buying that pier to begin with, but now that we got it, and we can't turn it into an oceanside park, then let's at least get an intelligent type of contract on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more? That's all I have.
That's it.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
You don't-
Oh, all right.
Well, that was good.
We're going to close it anyway.
This works.
Moving right along.
All right, council reports, and I'll start with you, Councilman Weinkoff.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to comment, say to the Parks and Rec Department, another great job for Easter. I went out to the Easter egg hunt that they had, and the park was packed with families and kids. They were parked up and down the road. I hadn't seen that many cars out there in a very, very long time, and the Parks and Rec Department did an excellent job of putting this event on. I'd like to say thanks to them.
Councilman Blaylock?
This is going to sound kind of one-sided. I'd like to comment on the police department's Facebook site. You guys got some great things on there. I'd like to encourage you all to take a look at it and become involved in it, because it's a great forum, a great opportunity to share with your police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
I don't have anything.
And no report.
Jim? All right, I have just a brief comment to make. The Resorts Towns and Convention City is hosting or sponsoring a Mayor Town Manager Day on May the 3rd. I just want the public to know and the other council members to know that we will be attending on behalf of Oak Island. It's a hand-targeted group of the 8 coastal towns that are in. If you're familiar with the Beach Inlet Management Plan, we hope to make some impact when we meet one-on-one with the representatives, and we're targeting Western and Mid-State, and going to knock it out pretty hard that day, so wish us luck. That's it for me. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. We have 2 committee appointments today, and it's for the Board of Adjustments. This term lasts until 2020. The first name is Eddie Grooms. I'll raise your hand for Eddie Grooms. 2. Jack Moore. Okay, Mr. Moore. And Mr. Steve Uhas. Okay, thank you very much. Administrative reports. Mr. Kelly, we're going to turn it over to you for an update on everything you want to tell us about.
Yeah, we have a very brief report tonight. FEMA came by and dropped off 4 projects for our debris during the Hurricane Matthew. Those total around $400,000 the town will be getting back for those funds expenditures. We do have a budget workshop tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We will be covering police, fire, and park and recs. That will be the main topics that we talk about. Anything else can be brought up, as you know, during the meeting. And that's our report.
All right, thank you very much.
Before we move away from that, could we add the discussion to that workshop in the morning on beach renourishment, financing for beach renourishment?
You can do that in the morning. You can add it in the morning.
We just listed the purpose of the meeting as general budget discussion, so anything in the upcoming budget can be discussed.
So anything comes up, okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Town Attorney?
We have a few items to discuss in closed session, and that's when I'll give my report, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Old business, report of Phragmites. Took me all day to memorize that one. Issue on 64th Street Pond. And we have a report by Gene Cudgens. Are you here, Gene? Thank you.
It took me a while to learn how to say it and spell it, but it's an invasive weed, quite prolific, and considering the ponds, freshwater ponds in the 64th Street area, those plants do not impact the stormwater flow. The reason is that we keep the inlets of all the culverts open. As you know, that area is part of a large system that runs from the mid-70s, southeast 70s to 58th Street. That's just about a mile. And what we found is by keeping the inlets of all those pipes open from that whole stretch from 58th to 74th, that it does promote the flow. And because it's so flat, the plants really do not obstruct the flow, because that water slowly rises, goes through a culvert, slowly rises, goes through the culvert and falls, and there's not really any velocity issues where those plants are slowing down any velocity of any sort. So again, they really have no impact on the stormwater.
What was our, refresh our memory as council, Mr. Kelly, what?
Gene, well, it was asked about the ditch work that was done, if we created any problems into the ponds.
Okay.
And we had Gene come in. Gene was the one who began the project years ago and put in the culvert pipe. And what we did is we matched the elevations that was currently there, and Gene and them has actually found another pipe on 64th Street that basically indicates that we did not change the elevations of the ponds. John Michaud was the public works guy that took onto himself to hire the person last time to go in there and treat the Phragmites and to cut the Phragmites. That was on mainly private property. We've had a few people complain about going onto private property doing town functions, and that's all the report that we have to give you. Last time it was decided not to do anything else with it, and we're bringing it back to decide if council wants to proceed, whatever they would like for us to do.
So that was just an FYI on how it got to where it was at and how it...
If when Tim was the manager, we applied to put a dam in, 2 6-inch plates on the pond to try to raise the pond level. Mm-hmm. And when we did that, or if we did do that, we would raise the elevations like Gene was addressing and would create flooding matters eastward. So that was something that staff did not recommend doing. We have a permit to install that, but it's never been installed. And that's sort of where it was left last time.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Well, I got a question. So when the drainage pipe was it lowered, or was it, what happened to it?
What happened was back in the early 2000s, 2004 or so, there became a huge problem with beaver dams in the culvert at Southeast 64th. Beavers made their way in there, and they would dam up the 24-inch culvert to a foot higher, sometimes more than a foot higher. That water would back water up into the lower 70s because, again, it is so flat. The town had tried all kinds of things to get rid of the beavers, trapping them. I even heard that there was a couple of shots fired down there. Don't have any personal knowledge of that myself. And they even put a large rope through that 24-inch pipe so that when the beavers did their thing, they could pull that rope back and forth and release that water. Because again, it was a large problem for all the upstream residents. So what we did, we figured a way to be able to clean that was to put a box culvert in at the same elevation as that 24-inch was, but this box culvert had grates across the top So anytime the beavers would go in there, we could take the grates off and just scoop the stuff off with a backhoe. And that was the purpose of the project. We put that box culvert in at the same elevation that the existing 24-inch was. And I surveyed it, and we have the documentation for it. But the residents that were making it an issue pointed to watermarks on decks out along their property. And yeah, those watermarks were there because of the beavers' damming effects had artificially raised that level. So, as I was telling David today, this spring, go back to studying this whole issue about the flooding in the 70s and how it relates to all those culverts all the way down to 58th Street. I came upon a set of plans that were over 30 years old that showed a second pipe on 64th. We found that pipe this spring. The elevation of that pipe, which was the water level 30 years ago, and go figure, happens to be the same as the pipe that the town put in. So we did not artificially lower that level. It's the same as it was apparently for what it was intended to be 30 years ago. And it's important for the people in the 70s that all those culverts, inlets, and outlets be obstruction-free and be maintained as we have done this spring. Because raising that water, if you raise it a foot at 64th, believe it or not, that impacts the 70s. It's that flat and it's that critical. Those ponds right now are functioning as stormwater retention ponds. And a small analogy to that would be if you had a 5-gallon pail and it's empty and it rains 5 gallons, the pail holds the water, right? If you have that 5-gallon pail and you put 2 gallons of water in it and now it rains 5 gallons, something not good is going to happen. It's going to flood. And that's exactly how that stormwater retention basin works all through those freshwater ponds from 58th up to the 70s.
Did the town obtain a CAMA permit prior to doing this work?
The work on 64th? No.
And why was that?
I was told it was not required because it was considered highway maintenance. Again, we did not change the elevation of that culvert. We did not impact any wetlands. It was going from a culvert, actually it's the same width. It has a deeper depth, but again, it's at the same elevation, so it did not change any water elevations.
Was there ever?
It was done to maintain flow.
Was there ever a CAMA permit issued to do any work there?
No.
Didn't need one.
On this last project that we did, we didn't get a CAMA permit. Steve applied for a different permit through the Corps. We did obtain a permit for them to be able to put the dams in, but it was not, CAMA didn't require to have one.
And these dams, have they been installed yet?
No, sir. I mean, I can answer,
Are they going to be?
it's a choice of yours. Last time we got ready to do it, we were told to put on holes. That's what we have been, waiting for council to give direction either to dam it up and back the water up, or
I thought we approved the billing, installing those dams.
the way Tim put it to staff. I mean, I don't know what y'all discussed with him, but the way he gave us direction, he told us that it was stopped and we could get the permit. And we hired the person to put it in, and then he stopped us and we did not complete it.
Who stopped it?
Tim did.
Okay, I think if you go back and check the record, the council did vote to install those plates.
Right now, it won't matter if you do or not.
Well, and I, I've been on council 8 years. In the first year I was on council, I started dealing with this. I got hit with it, and it's been ongoing since then. Yep. And the problem's still not solved. And you used a term tonight I've never heard used in discussion on this, is stormwater retention ponds. Were these ponds ever designated stormwater retention ponds?
No, but that's how they function. And
But these are natural ponds. These are natural ponds that man didn't build, right?
far as I know, yes, yes.
Okay. So naturally, they do service stormwater ponds. Any pond serves as a stormwater pond.
Right.
And another point that I pondered since looking at this again, we didn't have these Phragmites back in the early 2000s. They weren't there until the water level dropped. And the water level dropped, and now we're plagued with these things. So there seems to be some correlation here. And I know the people that bought these properties there.
Well, that's what I'm saying, the water level did not drop.
Pardon me?
The water level did not drop. We did not alter the elevation of that pond with the work that the town did with that box culvert. And the pipe that we found this spring, that's been there over 30 years, is at the same elevation as that culvert that the town put in.
Well, Gene, for whatever reason, the water level in those ponds did drop.
There was a drought during a certain period of years that caused that water level to go down.
You know, I don't know how to make this go away. I wish I did. I think, for whatever reason, we have dodged this long enough, and it needs to be brought to closure. Whatever it takes to do that, we need to do that. These people that bought these properties in there that depended on that for to be able to look at and enjoy the pond, it's no longer there. The water is barely deep enough now for the little fish to survive that live in there. So I think we need to open this back up, and a proper study needs to be done, and we need to do something to make some effort to correct it. I'm hearing the same things from you now I've been hearing for 8 years. And it seems to me that and you may not agree with me, and that's okay. The water level has dropped, and for whatever reason, either the fact that we lowered the culverts or raised the culverts, or something else has happened, and I think we need to do something to try to resolve this problem.
One thing that has not helped has been the development all around those ponds.
What'd you say?
One thing that has not helped has been the development. Houses are increasing stormwater pollution, they're increasing nutrients into those ponds. The lawns, the pesticides, the fertilizers, they all go into those ponds, and that doesn't help things either. So what the cause and effect actually is, I don't know. I'm sure it's a complex issue.
Well, I don't either, but I do know this. When I moved here in 2000, I fished in those ponds, and that water in there in some areas was 5 and 6 feet deep, and now you're pressed to find any water deeper than 3 feet.
Are the ponds, ponds are on private property, right? Are the ponds on private property?
Well, then, I guess they are, yes.
They are.
Well, that's my question. If they're on private property, if my grass grows in my backyard, I have to get out and mow it myself. I don't depend on the town to do it. I mean, that's the way it sounds to me. If these things, these Phragmites or whatever they are, have invaded the pond, it's not the town's fault. I mean, it's private property. If it was out someplace in the county somewhere, you wouldn't have people going into the county and saying the county needs to come out here and clean out my pond. My thoughts.
I've seen them town-wide. It's not just in these ponds. They're town-wide. They're throughout southeastern North Carolina and even into the uplands.
You know, private property or not, this is an environmentally sensitive area with wildlife and fish and like Jim said, I remember when it was a pond, and certainly something happened, and it appears to have happened around that time. And if there's anything we can do to help these people, I think it's the right thing to do.
You want to close off that existing pipe we found too?
I'm sorry?
Are you proposing to close off the existing pipe we found this spring?
I'm not proposing anything except to possibly help the people in this matter. That's the only thing I'm proposing. You know, that's up to somebody with a lot more credentials than I have, closing a pipe or not. I don't know anything about that.
And you know, we talk about it, and I've heard it said before, well, we had a drought, but I can take you to a ton of ponds in Brunswick County that went through that same drought, and they're now all full of water. So I don't think that argument holds water. Not a play on words, but I agree with Councilor Scott, and I've agreed with it all along, and have met a lot of opposition from my opinion, but I think we need to do something to correct the problem, because I think we created the problem.
Would anyone like to make a motion to move this forward, or whatever?
I'd like to make a motion to maintain our right-of-way as required and not provide any work on private property.
Second. All in favor? All opposed?
Jeff, did you vote?
Circumstance.
No.
Passes.
Passes. So he's abstaining, so it's a 3-2. Okay. All right, let's move on. Can we take let's take a 10-minute recess and come back and reconvene. Al's gonna kill me. Got it?
Okay.
Approve of an engineering contract for the Oak Island Pier. Does anyone have any discussion?
Question, has the changes been made that you had?
No, Mr. Medlin, I was, the changes have not been reduced to writing. I spoke to EB, and they sent it over in an Adobe format, so I can't, absent recreating the entire document, it's going to have to happen on their end. But they have agreed to, do you all have the contract in front of you?
Yes.
If you'll turn to page 3, the page numbers are in the top left-hand corner.
That's where they're stapled. Go ahead.
Middle of the page, other services and costs. There was some discussion at our special meeting about that. The engineers agreed to insert a clause there that says any work outside of this lump sum contract. This is in here because as kind of a catch-all if they anticipate additional work outside of the scope of services. He's agreed to insert a clause that basically says that if there is any work contemplated like that, or as this work progresses, they realize we're going to need to do something outside the scope of this, they're going to notify the town in writing and will not proceed with that work until the town approves of the work and the costs associated with the work. That was one of the items we discussed at that special meeting. If you'll turn to the next page, page 4, the limitation of liability, that I strongly recommended we not do, because if you recall, as previously proposed, or as proposed here, their liability would only be to the extent of the amount of money we paid them, which would be nominal in the grand scheme of things. They've agreed to increase that to $1 million. And that's what they do with the DOT, and that's what they do with the city of Wilmington. That's pretty standard. And I'll remind you that this is the engineering contract. When we get to the construction contract, that'll be a whole new ballgame on liability. And in fact, we'll have the contractor name the town as an additional insured on its liability contract. So the next item was, if you'll look farther down on that same page, verification of existing conditions. There's a unilateral indemnity provision in there saying that we will indemnify them if they get sued for something that's not a result of their sole negligence. We're going to make that reciprocal. If we get sued for something that they did, they'll indemnify us. And so those were the 3 changes that I discussed at our last meeting. They've agreed to all of those. I understand that there's going to be a budget workshop on the 27th or 5th? 25th. I'm confident we'll have the revised contract in hand by the 25th.
So do we want to table this until we have the hand covered?
You can do it one or two ways. You can say you authorize the town manager to sign the contract once those revisions are made to the town attorney's satisfaction, or you can wait until you have the physical document in your hand on the 25th.
I think we'd like to move forward with it if somebody wants to make a motion.
I make a motion we wait until we have the official document in our hands that we can read before we vote on it.
Second. Motion dies for lack of a second.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
A motion that we move forward with this, with the wording that the town attorney just used as far as having reviewed it, upon his review and approval.
Second.
Second, all in favor? All opposed? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, once we have it, I'll obviously forward it
All of
to
us.
David, and then I'll allow him, and then he can forward it on to everybody.
All right.
Are there any other questions about any additional revisions? Those are the major ones we discussed last time, so,
We're good?
thank you, Madam Mayor.
Welcome. New business, consideration of proposed amendments to section 14-61, 14-63, 14-65, and 14-66. This is our noise ordinance.
Madam Mayor, make a motion to adopt the proposed amendments, section 1461, 1663, 1465, and 1466.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passed unanimously. Number 2, under new business, is consideration of a resolution approving the Brunswick County Greenway Bike Routes and Paddle Trail Plan. Any discussion? Anybody like to make a motion?
All we're doing is, they've asked us to produce a resolution in agreement with the concept, right?
That's correct. Would you like to ask Jake that question? Jake, step up there just for a second.
That's correct, Jim, to adopt the plan that's on their website, that's on the link in the agenda packet.
Make a motion to approve the concept that's presented in the resolution that's presented in our packet.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. I entertain a motion at this time to go into closed session.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to go into closed session to consult with the town attorney on pending and potential litigation and potential land acquisition pursuant to NCGS 143, 318, 11A, 3, and 5.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
All here,
I'm
please.
leaving it all here.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order. And I'd like to make the statement there was no action taken during closed session. Now I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All, second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Now they are. Now do it over.
Do it again. I do that all the time. May 16th, May 10th, 2016 Town Hall meeting is now called to order. Councilman Baylock will offer the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, please bless this meeting and those attending. Grant us the wisdom to make the best decisions for the benefit of for the overall benefit of our town of Oak Island. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Glad to see you out tonight. We're going to start our meeting off with the first public hearing of the evening. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on a proposed amendment to Chapter 14, Environment, Article 2, Protection of Sand Dunes, Sea Turtles, and Other Wildlife Habitat, sand management projects to add additional regulations to the Sand Dune Protection Ordinance. Madam Clerk, is there anyone? Oh, Madam Clerk.
I believe all these are signed up for the next public hearing.
There are none for the first?
Just want to make sure that that's correct.
Is that correct?
Anyone signed up for the first public hearing? Okay.
I'd like to remind you to state your name, and we appreciate you adhering to the 3-minute time frame. Is that it? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to come out of public meeting,
So moved.
hearing. second?
Close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Second public hearing.
Madam Mayor, we take action on the first one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I make a motion to approve the amendments to section 14-121, 123, 126 through 132, and 145 through 147 as presented.
Is there any discussion? Have a motion on the floor, would you second? Thank you.
Question. And Steve, you might can explain this. The property line on Oceanfront lot going from the street back, does it go to the mean high water mark?
Not all Oak Island does. A lot of it was meets and bounds. And plus with the beach renourishment project, there's a general statute that talks about when you raise public trust lands from waters, that it remains public trust, and there's a boundary line that was set in place, which was the 2000 survey that the Corps used for delineating the project, the beach nourishment project.
Okay, so.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Oh, but you know, I would have to look at each individual lot to see where their boundaries begin and end.
But there are oceanfront lots that have regular property lines like an interior lot.
Correct.
Okay, my question relating to that is, if you've got your oceanfront, you got your mean high water mark, you have your primary dune, and then your secondary dunes. If that secondary dune impedes the rear portion of a lot, and I know there's some cases where they do, can we control that part of those secondary dunes being on private property?
I believe the general statutes allow us to regulate the land use in that manner, yes.
What general statutes are you referring to?
I need Jake. That's the, yeah, but it's the standard general statute that gives the municipalities enabling act to write ordinance for development.
375, I think.
168, 375?
I think it's 375. I mean, I think I know which one it is. I know it exists. I just don't know if I have the number, but I think it's 168, 375. But I would agree with that if it's a reasonable land use regulation, like a tree ordinance. Most trees are on private property, but we can regulate that type of thing.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Any questions for Steve? Anyone? Have a motion on the floor. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed likewise. Motion passed unanimously. This time we'll go into public hearing number 2. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive comments on a proposed amendment to section 14-121, definitions in section 14-125, use and develop coverage to establish and define the town oceanfront development line, which represents the allowable location of oceanfront development. The proposed line stipulates no structures shall be built seaward of the proposed Oak Island development line except as allowed under CAMA regulations. I can probably already tell you we need you to come to the front when we get through. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, we have Tom Buns.
Has there been a motion to open it?
We don't need a motion. But our rules state that putting on that agenda counts as a motion to open it. Our rules proceed.
Well, first of all, I would say that something I'm very unused to doing, speaking like this, but I want to give it a try, and I'm going to time myself, so at 3 minutes, I'm done.
Mr. Bunce, would you state your name, address, please?
Yes, my name is Tom Burns. I'm a longtime resident of Oak Island. I live at 117 Northeast 67th Street. And my family has 2 properties on the beach, on East Beach, 3518 East Beach, a second row home, and then the oceanfront lot next to that, across the street from that resort home we have. And I'm here, first of all, I want to thank the mayor and the council for the opportunity to share and brainstorm on this issue of this development line and try to get something accomplished. You know, sometimes I feel like, you know, in the national language it says the government doesn't work anymore. And I've been dealing with this for 15 years. It started out as an exception to the CAMA line. And I went to Greenville, North Carolina, and made a talk to the Coastal Resource Commission. And here we go. We're trying to get this exception to the CAMA line going. And I would ask some of the staff or whoever was the government then, and we say, how is the exception to the CAMA line? What's going on? And they'd say, well, the Corps of Engineers has got to study it. And it's always some extenuating circumstance. And I don't think the town fought for that exception for the CAMA line like we needed it to be. That's just my opinion. I don't think the town was fighting to get that exception to the CAMA line. And so now we got this development line. I'm hoping and praying that the powers to be can have some sympathy for the folks that have these oceanfront lots. I'm just, you know, I feel like we've been pretty patient on this. This is, I mean, my family's had land down here since the 1900s, I think. Not a whole lot of land. We're not big property owners. But I just want to say publicly that I'm hoping and praying this development line is real. And we forgot about the exception to the CAMA line now. And so we're, you know, hoping and praying that something will happen. And in closing, I just want to share my personal opinion on this room occupancy tax. We got 5% of all the revenue from rental property going into this situation, and we're only giving 2% to the beach renourishment. And my opinion is that a lot of that 2% has been used for.
That's 3 minutes.
Is that my time up?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my stopwatch didn't work. Thank you very much.
And Dara Royal?
Good evening, I'm Darrell Royal. I live at 216 Northeast 47th Street. Nonconformity has many faces on oceanfront property over time. Structure may not meet current coastal construction standards or base flood elevations. Structure's location may not meet current oceanfront setback distances from the first line of stable natural vegetation or the static vegetation line. Structure's location may not meet current front side or rear yard setbacks from property lines. A lot, either vacant or with existing improvements, may not have a viable building envelope. I encourage council to approach the location of a development line with respect to the building envelope created. In other words, what's the maximum square footage of the building footprint? For example, using a 60-foot development line measured from the street side property line with a 15-foot front yard setback from the street would create a 45 by 34-foot building envelope on your typical 50-foot wide lot. That's a 1,530 square foot, one-story building. 3,060, 2 stories, 4,590, 3 stories. According to the 2007 Brunswick County property cards, 26 of the then 478 single-family residential structures with a static vegetation line had a building footprint greater than 1,500 square feet. And 7 had a heated total space with 1 to 2 stories greater than 3,000 feet. But of those 26 and 7 exceptions that would be greater than the building envelope created as I just proposed are on lots that are not standard configuration, and they could still be rebuilt to their current square footage. Also consider potential for infill development, upgrades, or redevelopment built to current coastal construction standards and base flood elevations. For example, 88.7% of those 478 houses were built prior to 1991 and probably don't meet the 6 feet additional base flood elevation that was added to the regulations in that year. Compare that 60-foot development line per lot or block with the static vegetation line, the average structure line, and a 20-foot rear yard setback from the 2,000 mean high water line, and make adjustments accordingly, as appropriate. Compare that resulting development line with a 2016 first line of stable natural vegetation, and see how much time that gives you. I'd also like to take this opportunity to encourage council to continue to take incremental steps to position the town to take advantage of future opportunities. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Royal.
And Elizabeth Nelson?
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Nelson. I'm with Cape Fear Engineering at 151, I don't even know, Pool Road, Belleville, North Carolina. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Capel family, who has owned property here on Oak Island since the 1940s, and they own property on West Beach Drive. We've reviewed this proposed development line on behalf of them, and we would like to, and the family would like to offer any support that the town needs. They're in favor of this development line and would like to offer any support the town may need when you move forward, or if you move forward to CRC. Anything that you might need, they'd like to be there. And just as kind of a side note, as far as the first line of vegetation is concerned and the development line as proposed currently with the 85 feet, we have done some due diligence and compared the two, and they're almost identical. So the line that we feel you're proposing right now seems to be a great line, right in line with where the existing development is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's all the sign up there.
That's all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to come out of closed, to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? There can be action on this tonight, if you guys wish to do so.
I'll just state my position, and I know this is a big deal. It's an important thing. And I just don't want to see us, this is the first we've seen of this. And I just don't want to see us rush into this and make hasty decisions. One of the issues that I have, I don't know about the rest of you, but these little maps that are in our book are very, very difficult to understand and very hard to read. And I would like to see something more legible so we can understand what we're looking at before I make a decision on it.
Would you be open to a workshop where we could actually spend and see the bigger maps?
Yeah, that's fine. Anything that'll help us better understand it, because I've talked to 2 other council members about it this afternoon, and neither of them understand it either, so I'm not by myself.
I'm open to it.
I'd make a motion to set up a workshop so that we can better able to see the larger maps and better understand the difference in the 60-foot and the 85-foot, the vegetation line, the static line, the development line.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll second the motion for discussion, and I'd just like to make a comment to those of you that have spoken in favor of this. I'm not against it, but I'm not for it yet either. I want to fully understand it, and I don't. And I think a better map, and I think us sitting down and talking with Jake and Steve in detail about what we're looking at will help us better understand it and make a better decision. And so that's where I am.
Should we have another public hearing on this, or would that be in order?
It's up to you guys.
Could.
Can't we set it after the workshop?
Once we've had the workshop, we could have another public hearing.
Set it after the workshop, yeah.
So would you want to have the second public hearing at the workshop or after the workshop? After the workshop, okay. Do you want to pick a date tonight for the workshop, or do you want us to just try to schedule that later this week? We'll get with everyone.
Yeah, get with everybody, that way we can have time to look and see.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Is it
Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed likewise? Thank you. All right, do we have any council reports this evening from anyone? Anyone have a report?
I don't.
I just have one thing. I had a ride-along with the police department a couple of weeks ago when they arrested several of these people involved in break-ins on the island. And it was an eye-opening experience. They did a great job and very professional.
Thank you, Scotty. Anyone else? All right, we'll move right along. We have two guests tonight from the North Carolina or U.S. Coast Guard. One is Engineering Petty Officer Mr. James Meyer and local flotilla commander of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. And if you guys will join me at the podium, we're going to issue a proclamation. Yeah, that'd be great. Come on over. Whereas in 2014, the U.S. Coast Guard data show that there were 4,064 accidents that involved 610 deaths, 2,678 injuries, and approximately $39 million of damage to property as a result of recreational boating accidents. And whereas the vast majority of these accidents are caused by human error or poor judgment and not by the boat, the equipment, or the environmental factors. And whereas a significant number of boaters who lost their lives in drowning each year would be alive today if they had worn their life jackets. And whereas today's life jackets are more comfortable, more attractive, and more wearable than styles of years past, and they deserve a fresh look by today's boating public. Therefore, I, Sim Brochure, Mayor of Town of Oak Island, do hereby support the goals of the North American Safe Boating Campaign and proclaim May 21st through 27th, 2016 as National Safe Boating Week and the start of the year-round effort to promote safe boating. In witness thereof, I urge all of those who vote to wear it and practice safe boating habits. Thank you, guys. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. We'll let you have that one. We'll keep it. Take care. At this time, we'll move into our public comments section.
Madam Mayor, if we could adjust the agenda.
It's not, I'm sorry, I skip that every time. Is there any adjustments or amendments to the agenda?
I'd like to add, if we could, a new business 4 to schedule a budget workshop to present the budget. And I'm hoping we can do that on this Friday, the 13th. Has to be done at 2 p.m. if everybody's available. Are you going to be available?
What about Monday,
Monday?
Tuesday?
What's the date? I don't have my calendar. What's the date?
Monday is the 16th.
Monday or Tuesday would work for me, but Wednesday won't.
Tuesday would be better.
Tuesday would be better for me.
Tuesday?
Definitely would be better for me.
Okay, what time Tuesday?
As late in the afternoon as possible, so Jeff doesn't have to get off work, or early.
3?
Either.
Is that good?
3 would be fine.
Is that good?
Let's add that if you want to, you can add that to the consent agenda.
Okay.
Is there any adjustments to the consent agenda?
If everyone's in agreement, you can add it to the consent agenda and won't have to deal with it in new business.
Okay, that works.
Thank you.
Is that all the adjustments?
No, Madam Mayor, I would like to move, since we moved that consent agenda, new business number 4, the approval of the contract for services for the shallow draft for discussion.
Of number 3 or 4?
Number 3 down to new business number 4.
Well, if you're moving it from the consent agenda, it would go right below the consent agenda.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
to
right.
items removed.
Okay.
I want to move number 5 off the consent agenda as well.
Okay, it goes right under the last one. Any more? We're good?
Mayor, could I request that you add a committee report from the planning, committee from the planning board to your item number 3 under old business?
Is that appropriate?
He can't, I mean, if someone on the board
Someone on the
adds-
board would have to do that. I will add that to the consent agenda, please.
It will go under committee reports.
After 5, I mean, under the consent agenda, I'm sorry. Or do we need to move it to committee reports?
Yes, ma'am.
It'd be number 2 under committee report.
And that's planning board? Is that it? Entertain a motion at this time to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve as amended.
All in favor? Thank you, unanimous. Okay, at this time, we will enter into the public comments. Please state your name and address, and please remember it's 3 minutes.
We have Bob Jacobs.
Good evening. My name is Bob Jacobs. I'm at 109 Southeast 22nd Street here in Oak Island, and I am the treasurer of the Oak Island Beach Preservation Society. And I'm just here to say we are a voluntary committee branch of Oak Island. We were formed in 1997, and we collect money from memberships and selling T-shirts, and we deposit that money here in Town Hall, and Town Hall, the accounting people here sort of facilitate our usage of the monies that we collect, but we use no taxpayer money in our activities with the Beach Preservation Society. And so we are here, and we are participating in farmers markets where we sell T-shirts and we do other things. We try to we're here for the turtles and for the sand and for education activities. This past month, we had a fundraising event at the Island Way, and we recognized their service because they allow us to use the Island Way restaurant as a facility to hold their fundraising event. While there, we had a silent auction and a wine tasting event, and so we raised money through the silent auction items that were donated to us by various vendors in Southport and Oak Island. And we, the people who attended had some wine to taste and some light hors d'oeuvres, and it was just a fabulous event. And we just want to report to the town council and to the mayor that we really appreciate the opportunity to have these to be part of your organization, to be part of the town, and to be able to support the beach. Public Works is using some of the money that we've raised now in the next couple weeks to install and to maintain a couple extra beach rinse stations so that we can have people who come to the island rinse off the sand and the salt. And we just really had a great time, and we hope that we can continue to generate some kind of an income to support our financial growth and development, and to encourage people to watch out for the dunes and watch out for the turtles, and to really preserve our beach. We also had Earth Day, and we had more than 100 local school kids come to a booth at Middleton Park, and we gave them tours. We guided them and talked to them about safety in the ocean and all kinds of neat things, and the kids had a great time, and they signed a pledge to be beach lovers, and they're really impressionable at this age. And it was just a beautiful day, and getting people out there into the ocean and walking along and seeing the beauty, and also seeing some of the cigarette butts and other things is sometimes an eye-opening experience for them. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, and we're glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Bunce.
Richard Bunce, 125 Northeast 26th Street. There was an interesting article in the Brunswick Beacon on May 6, 2016, on the demise of the utility transfer from Town of Oak Island to Brunswick County. Quote, Representative Eiler said Friday that North Carolina Constitution Section 24(1)(a) limits local, private, and special legislation prohibiting the General Assembly from enacting any local, private, or special act or resolution relating to health, sanitation, and the abatement of nuisances. Eiler said he tried to convince the Legislative Drafting Division the legislation was about fees, not sanitation, but was unsuccessful and is postponing the effort for now, unquote. I understand that town officials cannot comment on this topic as there is pending litigation over this issue. I note, however, that the local legislation was passed by the previous Democratic Party majority in the state legislature to give 3 state-chartered municipal corporations an additional power to pay for debt service on a wastewater project by charging property owners in the utility service area a sewer treatment fee. I suspect the current Republican Party majority has little interest in maintaining such an arrangement, given their recent views on state-chartered municipal corporations' powers. Whatever the outcome in court, the legislature may end up repealing the local legislation. That would remove roughly $2.5 million from the utility system stream, which would translate to roughly $25 per month increase in the wastewater base rate. If the court should agree with the legislature on the fee, then the amount already collected, which should be north of $10 million at this point, might also have to be refunded. In a related note, any notion of the town using debt for a major beach renourishment project should be placed on the back burner for at least another 20 years while the utility system debt, now staying in the town's name, is repaid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bunce.
Please excuse my phone, Mr. Bunce, I apologize. That was me.
That's all that we had signed up.
That's it. Thank you. Does anyone else need to speak that didn't sign up, came in late? Thank you. At this time, we'll move to the approval of the consent agenda. A motion, please. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Charlie. Second. All in favor? Thank you. The first item that was removed from the consent agenda was number 3, Councilman Weinkoff, which is the shallow draft inlet permit.
Yes,
Would you like to make a motion on that and to go into discussion?
Well, I'd really like to see that if we're gonna have a workshop, let that be part of it, because to me, if we're gonna have beach renourishment and we're gonna have all these plans, there needs to be a set layout plan, exactly what it's gonna take effect. And we need to have money part of that plan, so the council will have some kind of idea of what's gonna be involved in the beach renourishment. We can't keep nickeling and diming every time we go to a meeting, we gotta do this and we gotta do that at the last minute without council having any previous notion, any presentations, and expect us to pass things. And that's just my personal opinion. I mean, there's items, yes, we need to do, but to me, I thought we had this same thing last year, and it was a piggyback with Holden Beach, and Holden Beach got the say, and we turned that down because the town of Oak Island got nothing out of it. And I'm just under impression right now, until we get something laid out, a detailed plan, how we're gonna move forward with any kind of beach renourishment, what costs are gonna be affected with it, so we can make reasonable and logical decisions. We don't need to keep adding things to the agenda to be approved until we have some kind of plan.
Is it time sensitive to make a decision?
It's not time sensitive necessarily, but I will say that it's separate and apart from beach nourishment. This would be just for dredging for the Lockwood Folly Inlet. And what it is the Corps of Engineers gets the permit. Holden Beach is already onto that permit as a permit holder. We are looking to also be considered a permit holder, so that if the Army Corps of Engineers decides it does not want to dredge a particular year, but the towns feel that it's necessary, what we don't have to do at that point is spend more than $100,000 for an environmental study. So we already have confirmation from the state, and I'll give Mr. Foster credit for that, that we have confirmation that they'll pay 2/3 of the cost, bringing our cost down to slightly over $5,000. So it'd be $5,000 now to potentially save more than $100,000 later if we went to dredge.
I also
And Mr.
spoke-
Foster's here if you have any questions for him.
I also spoke with Ryan Jordan, who is a fisherman who has been working with the county, and said that Steve Stone did a presentation at their county agenda meeting this past week, and they are in the process of appropriating funds for this as well.
So. Foster. Yes, I would like to hear from you since you're on the committee. Chairman.
I'm Steve Foster. I'm the chairman of the Beach and Inlet Committee. Thank you for an opportunity to speak tonight. I did leave a message for you.
I know I've been tied up in budget meetings at my work.
What this is, to build off of what Ms. Stites had to say, what this is something that started back, and I don't bore the board with all the history on this thing, but it goes back to like 2011. The coastal towns in North Carolina were very concerned about the potential of the Corps getting out of dredging these shallow draft inlets. If they didn't do it, then there's really basically nobody could do it because they held the general permits on these shallow drafts that the other towns did not have. That's the way it started out as a navigational issue. Now, this separately, and what we do in accordance with Holden Beach and the county, we pay to get this dredged by the Corps. I don't know if they've been doing it every year now. I haven't checked to see. But in the past, they've done it every year to keep these inlets open so boats can get in and out. So it was a navigational issue at first. So what ended up happening was we were afraid with these two frail dredges that the Corps has, they're side cast dredges, which I think we all agree are very ineffective dredges. One was built in 1949, the other was built in 1947. And these babies are about ready to go on their last legs, and the Corps subsequently we were afraid of, these towns, that what would happen is that no one would pick up the job navigationally to be able to handle this. Well, the state stepped in, the Division of Coastal Management, and says, let's come up with some kind of an agreement with the Corps. If they do get out of the business of dredging these inlets, that we'll be able to use their permits and be able to contract to get sand out of these inlets so that boats can get in and out. Well, the other part of this was that the general permit would also allow the towns, without going through an extraordinary cost, $500,000 or more, to have to get the environmental impact studies and all the various biological studies that cost so much money that would be a benefit to be able to put the sand on our beaches in addition. So, in any event, they went to work, got this together. The town at that time didn't see the advantage in doing this because it was a navigational thing. And frankly, the sand part didn't come up, but it did later on. And we feel like that in our case, we would need to be able to hold this permit, pull it out of our back pocket. Basically, its cost is $15,000. I talked with the Division of Coastal Management, and they will cover 2/3 of the cost of this thing, which leaves the town's liability, financial liability, of only $5,000. This will be the best $5,000 the town ever spent, period. We're going to save, as Ms. Stites pointed out, we're going to save hundreds of thousands of dollars in permitting cost, and also we'll be able to keep that inlet open going forward if the Corps gets out. And I'm not standing here and telling you they're going to get out next year. It could be 4 years, but eventually they're getting out of this business completely. So that's the importance of it. To sum up, the importance is at very, very expensive cost. I think Ms. Bell over there checked with our engineer and said it'd be the best $5,000 we've ever spent to be able to get permission to use this sand. And the other part of this, the other advantage, this is inshore sand. This is the cheapest sand that you can use to put on the beaches. If you have to go offshore past the COREG, what they call the COREG sign, my Coast Guard guys are gone, but you got to get ocean-going certified ships to go off to pump this on. This is all sand that's basically there just for the taking, and it's just pennies on the dollar what it would cost for offshore. So does it make financial sense? Yes, it makes great financial sense. So it'd be, I think it'd be to the town's advantage to go ahead and pass this.
and go ahead and get the process started to get the permit on it.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Any more questions?
Ms. Bell, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
No, it was actually Lisa that spoke with Johnny Martin.
Oh, it's
And I will add that. Some of the beach things that we've been doing, the beach plan, the Eastern Channel dredging that we did last year, that has been done with Moffett and Nickel, and Johnny Martin is our engineer there. He understands that we were in a transition period here, and so he did take it upon himself to call me and encourage us to follow up with this and to be a part of this permit, even though his firm is not the engineering firm that we would use. So.
Okay. Anybody, I'd entertain a motion.
I got a question.
Okay.
If the state does stop dredging and we got the permit, it allows us to dredge that channel open? And the cost
But
of...
it's not the state, it's the Corps.
Or the Corps. And the cost to be, what did you say, close to 100,000?
Well, just for the environmental studies, just to get the permitting at that point.
Have we negotiated with any other towns like Southport, St. James, in case that we have like a coalition that will work together, just in case?
I don't know how that would really work, to be honest with you. This is like an independent type of thing for the 5 inlets.
But if we're opening a channel for the boating...
But now that's how it came open, or came to pass, is all these towns were very concerned the Corps was gonna get out. So that's sort of their coalition now, of what we have, so.
So the benefit would, we would have control of the sand that came from that dredging. We would have control of the sand that came from that dredging.
As long, now let me say this again, if the Corps gets out of the business, which I personally think, and a lot of other people think they're gonna get out of, that's when we're able to use this general permit to get sand.
So this is basically just the permit, right? It's not the dredging or the cost of dredging or...
Doesn't obligate us to anything.
Just the permit.
Just get this is get the ticket to go. That's what it is.
And this is 5,000.
Yes.
Okay.
5,000, I think it's 5,000 some change.
Some change, a little bit of change.
Yep.
Less than 6.
Any more questions for Mr. Foster? Any more discussion?
Thank you.
Chair would entertain a motion to,
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the contract with O'Brien and Gear for engineering services to add the town of Oak Island as a permit holder for dredging the Lockwood Folly Inlet.
do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, the next item that came off the consent agenda is number 5, Council Member Bale, approval interest for sewer assessment.
Each time we have one of these, it's important for us to look at the background for each one of them. In this gentleman's letter, he is stating that when he bought the property and went through the closing attorney, that the town gave him permission to pay his sewer assessment in 10 years. He was not the original owner, and that the original, it wasn't really a contract, it was just an agreement between the town, and the first owner assessment was for the 10 years. Once something is sold, that has to be paid at closing. The 10-year payment allowance did not carry over from property owner to property owner to property owner. In other words, I've been paying on mine, I think I have something like 3 years left. If I sell my house today, I would be required by the attorney, the closing attorney, to pay off that sewer assessment before it could change hands. So there's no way that there had to have been a closing attorney, and they had to have known that the sewer assessment was due at the time of closing. Therefore, I'm making a motion that we do not approve the release of the interest of $1,058.75.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, any questions?
So what you're saying is they would go back, the responsibility goes back to the attorney, the closing attorney?
Correct. Correct.
Wouldn't they have found that in the title search?
Correct.
Then the title company would pay, should
Correct.
pay for it. Okay. All right, any more discussion? All in favor of the motion? Likewise, that's unanimous. All right, That was all that was that was removed from the consent agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now we're going into committee reports, and we're going to start with the Water Quality Working Group, Environmental Advisory Board. And I'm sorry, I don't have the name of the person. that's
Well,
going to
they had provided a written report. I'm not sure if they intended
Oh,
to
they
speak
weren't
or
going to give
not.
one? Okay, so then we can go to the planning board report? Yours was verbal, correct? You wanted to give it? Got you.
For the record, I'm Ted Manis, Chairman of the Planning Board, 3022 West Beach, Oak Island. Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I thank you for the opportunity to be able to basically speak to you this morning or this evening. I stood up because I wanted to make a committee report to you because I think I see a disconnect between the planning board and the council. I'm not saying anything bad about the planning board or any concern about the council, but a disconnect, I think. I'd like to ask your input and explain to you what my concerns are. The planning board is, I think, doing a very, very dedicated job to trying to provide efforts to accomplish those things that are necessarily referred to us by the council or to us by the Development Services Department. When this evening several of you indicated that you were concerned and did not understand the development line issues, that raises a big flag, a red flag for me. In that last meeting, we spent probably, and this was a guesstimate, but I think we spent almost an hour and a half in the planning board on the development line issue. Before that, we had volumes of information which we studied, including those same little maps that you got that are very, very difficult to read, to prepare for that discussion. When we do that, I want to know, as the chairman of the planning board, that after we spend all that time, you guys are getting the information and that you're benefiting from the efforts that we undertake. Now, if in order to accomplish that, it takes me personally coming to each and every one of you and spending an hour individually with each of you after our meetings, before you come to a council meeting some 2 weeks after we have our planning board meeting, I'll do it. I'm more than happy to do it. If it takes having a workshop and me or my vice chairman or other members of the planning board coming to the workshop to give you the benefit of all the input that we have undertaken, I'll do it. We'll do it, and we'll be happy to do it. But we need to make sure somehow that the information that we undertake at the planning board gets to y'all well in advance so that you've got the ability to make a decision at the time and not just try and read something that Jake puts together that comes to you and you don't understand it. Because, I mean, we spend a bunch of time on this. We've had the benefit recently of Mayor Brochure being there, Sheila Bell being there, Charlie Blaylock being there. I know that Jeff has been there in the past. And I just want you to know we're there for you. But the development line, and one of the reasons I want to stand up here is because if you guys have a workshop in the next 2 weeks, I don't think I'm going to have the opportunity to be there because I'm headed out of town for 2 full weeks, and I'm not going to be available. And I wanted to take this opportunity to let you know that that development line was done on one particular basis. We undertook to stretch as much as we reasonably felt we could stretch to get into the development line and into the ability of every conceivable, possible individual lot owner to be able to have rebuildable lots. We pushed it as far as we thought was reasonable to take to the CRC to ask them to approve this. And we also did it in a manner that we wanted to be the first in the door. That's what we did. That's how we did it. Those words are on the record. And specifically, I'm truly disappointed that y'all didn't feel comfortable enough to be able to go forward with it tonight and make sure we're the first in the door. But realistically speaking, I don't want these things happening in the future. So I want y'all to discuss it among yourselves or however, and let me know if it's necessary for me to come to each and every one of you after my planning board meetings. Please let me know that, because I'm willing to do it. I just want y'all to be educated. You are entitled, the citizenry is entitled to have y'all fully understanding the stuff that's coming before you. And it takes us a long time to fully understand it. But we're there pushing Steve hard and pushing Jake hard to make us fully understand it. And sometimes it's going to be literally impossible for Jake to put it in a paragraph or 2 paragraphs so that you can understand it fully at the meeting. And I understand, if I was sitting where you are, I'd be hesitant to just take the word of Jake, who says the planning board passed this, because you don't know what we did. But that's why I try to ask Lisa to make sure that those minutes are fully explanatory. And I go beyond, and at least in my opinion, trying to make sure that the record is clear as to what we do and why we do it. If you have any questions of me now, I'm more than willing to talk to the issue.
Could I respond?
Absolutely.
Ted, just let me say, I do appreciate what you guys do. I know you work hard, and I know you spend a lot of time on this. I'm not doubting that. And I saw where I read your approval and what you had said on this issue. But this is the first time we've seen it. I can't attend every planning board meeting.
Oh, I understand that.
And shouldn't have to. And before I'm going to vote on it, I'm going to understand it. If I don't understand it, I'm not going to sit here and vote on it. And that's why I said what I did tonight. And I think the workshop will better help us all understand it. And it'll take a little time, but at least we'll be voting on something that we have clear knowledge of and that we feel good about. I don't know where the rest of you are, but that's where I am.
Is it not possible that in future, when we have something like this undertaken, rather than putting it on the agenda and bringing it forward, there is a presentation made by Jake and Steve and me to make sure y'all fully understand it before anybody even asks you to take a vote on it?
Sure. I think that was
Because at least that way, I'd know that the word is getting to you and we got the opportunity to say it. And the reason I stand up for planning, the reason I stand up for a committee report is technically, I'm not entitled to come up here. You got staff to do that. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm part of the staff when I'm chairman of the planning board. And if we've got things to present to you, I kind of want to be a part of that. But that's just something that I'd like y'all to mull over and think about.
And Ted, what would help too, for me, is when it comes to y'all, that it comes to us too in some kind of format where we can actually be starting to review it the same time of y'all reviewing it.
I think that's a great idea.
Because right now, we don't get it to the last minute. Y'all have already took it up and reviewed it, studied it, and then we have just a few days to go over it and look at it and try to understand it. So if something comes to y'all that's delicate, that y'all are going to review and it takes time, we need that same time. And if we have it, we can start that process.
And if you will, let me ask this. Pick up the phone and call me if you got questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Committee appointments. We have one appointment in this meeting, and it's for the Environmental Advisory Board. It's one term till June 2018. The name is Randy Ollis?
Maybe.
Ollis? I would like to, it's different, you call it,
You just ask for all those in favor of appointing Mr. Ollis.
all of those in favor of appointing Mr. Ollis.
I like the skills that he listed in.
I do too, I'm glad, I do too.
I did too.
Now somebody has to read out loud.
I'm glad you picked up
All
on
in
it.
favor, please? Unanimous. Administrative reports, do we have any, has anything changed from the time the agenda?
I just had a few things I wanted to mention, if I could.
Go ahead.
We had the Ride the Tide this past weekend. We had 68 participants. This coming weekend, Parks and Rec Department is facilitating some kayak fishing classes. The next comprehensive plan ad hoc committee meeting, they will get started again on June the 7th, and that meeting is at 3 p.m. The UDO, I believe the next meeting for that will not be until July. Is that correct? July 27th? Okay, we'll check that for sure. And the planning board meeting is normally on a Thursday, but in May, it will be on a Friday, May 20th. And that change is just for this month only. It was just a scheduling change with some training that some of the planning board members will be attending. And that's my report.
Any council member? Okay, thank you.
The only thing I have is, how many committees do we have, along with subcommittees? And it was brought to my attention this week that some of our staff are spending an inordinate amount of time with committees and subcommittees, and can you get us a list?
Sure.
And I didn't know about the subcommittees.
Okay. I can
Get
give you a
all of
list.
the,
And I can also give you the committee charges for the ones that we have them. Okay.
Could you include in there how many staff members attended the meeting?
Sure.
On an average. Town attorney, do you have any
A
comments?
few items to address in closed session,
Okay,
but nothing
thank
now.
you. We have no old business this month. Turning to the new business, consideration for final plat for Lowe's Food Stores. Jake, would you, where's Jake? Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I've looked at this, and I don't see any serious deviation from what was presented in the beginning. I would make a motion to approve the final plat as submitted in our packet.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? So moved, all in favor.
Well done, Jake.
Sorry, Jake, we don't need you right now. Consideration of a proposal for engineering services from Moffett and Nickel, and that, I think, Jake, you can address, or Steve, one of you can address that if we have any questions. Does anyone want to make a motion on that?
I have a few observations on it.
Okay, go right ahead.
Both of the contracts have similar provisions that the choice of law provision would be the state of California. I'm recommending that North Carolina law govern both of those. Well, I'll take it for this one, that be changed. The contract as proposed says California law will govern. I'm saying
We need to correct it.
Change that to North Carolina.
Do we need a consensus for that, Madam Clerk? Do we need that's just a
Well,
no-brainer.
should council approve the contract, you'll just want to put that into the motion. That'll be contingent upon that change.
And then
I
the
just
other,
have a couple questions about the contract.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I just have one more observation, but I can wait, Madam
Oh,
Mayor.
no, go ahead, I'd rather you go ahead.
There was one on their liability being capped at the amount of money they're paid under the contract. I think that, as we've done in all other contracts, index that to their insurance coverage, not to, because these are relative, it's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme, I think one's 25,000, one's 75,000. That would be eaten up quickly if something went south. So I suggest you index the cap of their liability to their insurance.
That needs to be put in the motion as well. Okay, Madam Bell, do you have a?
We're considering these separately, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All
Separate
right,
issues.
the $25,000 administrative contract, my understanding is that it is just that, incidentals, on-call, in the event that they need to step in on our behalf for permitting processes or,
Yeah, and there are a few things that this could address. For one, Holden Beach has a terminal groin project, and as part of that, they have to have an inlet management plan. And that's something that will involve the town of Oak Island because we have interests in the inlet as well. So they would look out for our interests involved in that. It also, their proposal includes stormwater services as well. I think the Beach and Inlet Committee would recommend that that be considered separately and be a separate contract. We brought it forward as it was proposed with the indication that the committee would recommend 2 separate contracts.
Pretty well spelled out in the packet what it's for. It says the proposed contract would cover on-call services such as these pertaining to the items above and include support in meeting attendance for potential funding plans, review of documents and meetings pertaining to the Holden Beach Terminal growing, and negotiating with the Corps of Engineers and Holden Beach concerning management of the Lockwood Folly Inlet in the Atlantic Inland Coastal Waterway. That's pretty clear, I think. I think that's a cheap price. When it includes our stormwater issues too.
Yeah, that's a big
issue too. So I think that's a.
And hadn't Mr. Martin, hadn't he been doing stuff for us sort of for free?
He really has. He's been very helpful.
he's answered my phone call as late as 9:30 at night with questions, and I don't think we've seen invoices for that.
We have not.
I wouldn't answer at 9:30 at night.
So basically, it covers a lot of things in
Yeah.
that one. And-
General
and
engineering,
a major
we
one
don't
is
have
the
an engineer on
stormwater
staff, so.
issues we've had this year because of all the rain.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. Make a motion, we approve the contract as presented or approved with the removal of stormwater services and the understanding that a separate proposal would be forthcoming and that this motion would include the changes recommended by our attorney.
Second? All in favor? Unanimous. Number 3, consideration of proposal for engineering services with Moffett and Nickel and its beach monitoring. Say that for me, please, Lisa.
Monitoring.
Madam Mayor, I have the same 2 observations for the same
one.
2 provisions.
Page 98.
I would really like to see this one included in the workshop, just because it's such a large contract. I'd like to see all the things that will be covered under the contract, and if we approve the contract for the first year, or are we held to the contract for each year, or is it a separate contract for each year thereafter? In other words, once we start the process, what if we didn't renew it the following year? Would that negate all of the data that is collected the first year?
Mr. Foster can answer.
One second. Did you start off saying you wanted to see a workshop and then?
Yes, I would like to see this included in the workshop, rather than it be denied altogether.
Would you like to make a motion of that, or do we want to continue discussion?
Let's continue discussion here with Mr. Foster.
Okay. Mr. Foster, they'd like to ask you some questions?
I'll be more than happy to. Again, Steve Foster, Chairman of the Beach and Inlet Committee. I believe Ms. Bell's on that committee as well, too. We went through this at our meeting, and we had a rather lengthy, phone call from Mr. Martin with Moffett and Nickel. This is the building block. This is the foundation of any beach nourishment program. It's know where you have sand, know where you don't have sand, dividing these things up into transects, making sure that they're accurately recorded and what's happening with the transport of sand up and down the beach. This is you can't do anything unless you do this first.
Now, we did have Dr. Clary from the University of Florida that did this for a number of years. I think Ms. Royal will remember that. But this wasn't exactly the detailed information that we needed to proceed on with the beach nourishment project. I think it was pretty clear in that this is basically doing the survey, the transects, and laying the foundation for this particular project going forward. Now, whether we use it now or whatever the board decides to do with it, this is still information that we're going to have. So I'm not sure what more we could cover in a workshop, but we'll certainly be glad to provide whatever additional information that we need.
I am still in favor of it. I voted for it in the Beach and Inlet Committee, and I'm still in favor of it now. There were some questions about it and spending that much money. Rather than it get voted down completely tonight, I would much prefer to see it brought up in the workshop. That was my point.
Concern. I hope it's not going to be, but I appreciate your concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Appreciate you always being willing to answer questions for us. Any motion? Does anyone make a motion?
Well, I came prepared to vote on this tonight because I think it's important that we move forward with it, but if we need to talk about it in the workshop, I'm good with that too.
I'd like to agree with Ms. Bell. I think including in the workshop from a personal standpoint would help me understand better. So I'd like to see it in there.
Jeff?
We need a motion of some sort.
I move that we include this item, the proposal for engineering services with Moffitt Nichols on-call services be included as an item in the workshop.
No, you're number 3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Charles.
Uh-oh, where was I? Which one am I on?
Number 3.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, on page 98.
that's what I just read.
I'm sorry, it should read for the beach monitoring services.
Beach monitoring services.
Beach one,
Mistake? Oh.
No,
good.
you're right.
It's not
We're-
me? Okay, good. Make sure that's on the record.
I'll take that one, thanks.
Okay, I'd like to propose that we move.
motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we move the monitoring services from Moffitt Nichols to the workshop.
For consideration.
For consideration.
Do we have a second? All in favor? All opposed? 4 to 1. All right, thank you. That pretty well concludes the major part of the agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into closed session to consult with our town attorney on pending and potential litigation and to discuss specific personnel pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, A, 3, and 6.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Calling the town meeting back to order. And I want to state that there was no action taken in closed session. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the interim town manager's contract as presented.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?